Welcome to Shop Talk. I'm Andrew Lucio. This is Caden Brown and Kyle Waple. And today we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball Super. It is an awesome anime that just concluded, actually. Before we even get started about the trading card game, let's talk about the show. Caden, were you with me? Were the tears flowing when freaking 17 showed up out of nowhere? Out of nowhere, I thought he was dead. I straight up thought he had destroyed himself.
I was pretty happy to see him come back. I was pretty excited for the last episode, and I wanted it to blow me away, and it did. I was happy with it. I was happy with the ending. And, you know, the announcer always says, until next time. And then you finally get to hear him say, well, you know, it's over, but it's not over. So until next time, which is always a good thing. You know, I'll be glad when it's back on.
Kyle, were you feeling the Goku Frieza team up?
Absolutely. Are you
were you feeling that show of respect just a little bit at the end there?
Frieza brought it home for everybody. Let me tell you, he is the dude. All Frieza. Goku was there. He did all right.
Do you forgive him for blowing up Krillin now?
Oh, absolutely. Frieza's my favorite. Are you kidding me? Frieza never did wrong.
This is going to make a lot more sense as far as the Frieza love is concerned when we get to Mecha Frieza later in the show. But again, I thought they did an excellent job. I mean, I've been watching Dragon Ball since probably '88 when I started watching it on Channel 21 when it was the English dub for just original Dragon Ball. And from that point until now, as a 33-year-old man, I've grown up with the series. I love Goku. Like, I know people talk about how they all have their favorite characters, and to a certain extent, Vegeta's like one of my favorite characters just because I relate to him more on a personal level. But ultimately, for me, the show is all about Goku. It's always been about Goku. I know that Toriyama wanted to make it about Gohan during the Cell Saga. I think he said that was supposed to end with Gohan being the hero of the story. Because he's an Earthling, and Earth should be protected by Earthlings, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad Goku's back.
Yeah.
I feel like all of Z was like Gohan's just upcoming. Like the entire story, you follow him as a kid, and you go until he is in high school, and he is like the strongest character up towards the end.
It's like the struggle too, because his mother doesn't want him to do that.
Oh yeah.
But his dad wants him to do that, and you know, in the end, I think he's a great character because he's both sides. He can defeat Cell and save his friends in the universe, but at the end of the day, he can go and hit the books and be as smart as any other kid in class.
How well do you think they handled the transition for him after the events in Resurrection F, when he is basically defeated and he understands for the first time, I think, as an adult, how important it is to be powerful?
I think he's torn because, you know, he sees Piccolo get hurt, and Piccolo's like his trainer, his mentor. When his dad wasn't around, Piccolo's around.
Father figure?
Father figure. Piccolo's basically his dad. Let's be real. Okay, and you know, at this point, he's having a daughter. He's got his own kid, and he sees that, okay, something can happen now, and I need to be able to protect my family, my home. And it's really cool because you don't see that from anyone else. It's always like, hey, there's a bad guy, let's fight him. And, you know, I'm the strongest one in the world. And this is like, to me, is like one of those characters where he actually had like a reason to want to defeat the bad guy, not just to be the better warrior or the better fighter or whatever. So,
What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, absolutely. Gohan he showed it, like, in the middle when he's first getting back into the fighting. He was just like, I have to protect my family. Like, this is a big deal. And when Goku, like, would give him the push for God, he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to power up in my own way. And Gohan has continually showed, he's always stepped it up each arc. He's come back. And I was hoping for the Tournament of Power, we'd see him win it, but
So do you think
bitter ending
that Mystic Gohan, when he finally taps into God Ki, if he does, because he does have the capability, I think. We saw him stand on par with SSB. So if he taps into God Ki, do you think that gives us a new transformation? Much like we saw with Black and Rose. Do you think we get some kind of mystic God mode for Saiyans?
I think the mystic thing is like its own. uniqueness to me.
True.
I always thought it was weird because his hair doesn't change color, and like the whole time you're just waiting for his hair to change color. But he gets the like white aura, and to me he looked like very confident at that time, whereas like every other time he was just like, I'm a Saiyan and this is my my thing. But I mean I liked the Mystic or Ultimate Gohan, whatever they call it. I think that they could do something with it later on and show that he can access more power now, because we have all these other transformations, and even like you said with the Rose, it was unique in its own. So hopefully you do see something cool like that later on. They got a whole other show and movie that they're gonna do.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. So you see and this is just drawing a parallel from that white aura. You see Goku get silver eyes, kind of. You get a kind of a white aura.
Absolutely.
Go silver hair, kind of, and that's Ultra Instinct. Maybe foreshadowing with Mystic. Maybe we skip over all the SSB stuff and we just go straight to an Ultra Instinct style.
The Elder Kai is what awakened him, and he is on that level of God. Not quite to where we see the angels, but he is, they're on a plane higher than the mortals.
For sure.
So it's definitely a thing that could be there. The other thing is Gohan is not a full-blooded Saiyan like Goku and Vegeta. And as we saw with Super Saiyan, it took them a while to tap into it. But all the half Saiyans, they're in it.
Even more with the quarter Saiyans, I guess is what they are. Goten and Little Trunks.
Oh, and then
they were kids when they just awakened their Super Saiyan.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
That just shows that the more down the bloodline you get, the stronger they're going to be.
Well, they're still half Saiyan.
Sure.
Yeah, Trunks and Goten.
Yeah.
But Pan is quarter, and she's the first quarter of all of the Saiyans. And I feel like from her flying in space and everything else that they've definitely foreshadowed a great deal of power. And I kind of like how Oob is in the mix just a little bit. Like they've kind of alluded to Oob.
They just mention him.
And then age-wise, the difference between Oob's age and Pan is marrying distance. So how cool would that be to see a grown-up Pan and a grown-up Oob just battling it out, and they're just like, I love you.
Oh my god.
Goku, your grandfather was my trainer. Let's get married and have babies. I mean, those kids would be amazingly powerful. I mean, just think about it. Reincarnated Majin Buu and Super Saiyan.
Absolutely. But and then there's so Vegeta, he tapped into God without doing the ritual like Goku did.
Oh, true that.
So it might just be, just being in the area. So Gohan training with his dad, that might be enough to just trigger God. We don't know yet. They haven't really, there's a lot of room there. And now that he wants to train to protect his family, there's only room for growth now.
I think so too. And I think that if Toriyama really wants Gohan to be the hero of the story, I think this new arc going into another Saiyan and potentially going into another tournament where we're fighting the universes that were exempted, that could be something that would really give Gohan the impetus to step up his game and just become something more powerful than we've ever seen, and finally give Goku the breathing room to be able to lean on somebody, because I don't think we've actually had that before. Vegeta, while he's very powerful, I've always thought that Vegeta is
just a rival.
Just a rival.
He's just trying to be as good as he is.
It's always like Kakarot's not going to be better than I am. I'm going to be better than Kakarot kind of thing. And neither of them really show the kind of concern or loyalty or dedication to the Earth in the same way that Krillin or Gohan or some of the Z fighters.
You see a little bit in the Tournament of Power. Vegeta is willing to kind of bite the bullet after he figures out that, hey, Goku's probably going to be the one to do this. So let me help him. Let me just and he even stands up for him when all of the gods of destruction look down upon him because he's getting beat by Jiren.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the first one to stand up and say, look, we're Saiyans, we always come back, and you guys keep doubting Son Goku, and Son Goku is about to come back. And
for sure.
That's exactly what he did.
For sure. All right, so we've talked enough about the anime. It's completely 100% absolutely amazing. If you haven't sat down to watch it, DBZ Kai is a great place to start, and then go from there right into Resurrection F. and Battle of the Gods, then Resurrection F, and then go right into Super. And Super will recap that stuff at the beginning of the series, and then you can just go from there. It's a really great series, really great show, and it'll get you super pumped for the trading card game. So now, what we have come here to talk about, the Dragon Ball Super trading card game.
Yep.
Came out last year in July. I had heard rumors of it.
Yep.
Panini had done such a terrible job with it that it left a super bad taste in not only my mouth, but I think the mouth of every retailer across the United States. We went from that point to not even a year later, and this game has exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, you and Chris were two of the people that came to me initially with the game. What made you even want to take the chance on the game?
So going into it immediately, I realized that it was being pushed by Bandai of Japan. This wasn't Panini, this wasn't some other group. This was straight from the source. This is Bandai. And it's not Bandai of America, which did the Naruto game. They ran it for a good couple years, 6-7 years, and it died. And a lot of people say bad things about that, but this is straight from the source. And I feel like that is what they wanted to live. They want that to live. Also, there's the Japanese card game, which is a bit different than our game, but that's already been going for 2 or 3 years, and they're having great success with it. I saw it on Twitter, and it was just, they were showing off like their new promos, the foiling on it. I'm like, these cards are beautiful. I was thinking about looking into the Final Fantasy card game, and I looked at those cards, and I'm like, I'm not a fan of these cards. Mm-hmm. But these Dragon Ball cards, they look really cool, and I'm like, I want to try this game. And for their Twitter thing, they were like, hey, sign up for this thing, we'll send you some demo decks. So we sign up, they send us like 4 demo decks, and we're like, we're going to try this game out. It was amazing fun. It was just everything I wanted from a Dragon Ball game. It's not like in the sense of like character powers show up. So in this game, I could have Captain Ginyu, who is going to fight on the same level as Super Saiyan God Goku. I'm not saying that, there are God Goku cards that are going to be like 6-7 costs. They're going to be really good cards. But in terms of like my leader, these cards are equal. It's not, if I want to use, Frieza Force Saga people and I want to use Dragon Ball Super guys, that the Dragon Ball Super guys are just way better in every aspect. And I loved that part of this game. It felt like no matter what I was a fan of, if I like Dragon Ball, if I like Dragon Ball GT, if I like Dragon Ball Z, if I like Dragon Ball Super, it is all balanced throughout the every single series this game has. And I love that of this game.
So, Caden, you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! You played for a long time at really competitive levels. You hear about this game. Why do you try it?
Well, I really enjoyed the show. That's one thing. I watched the movies, and part of it was like, I want another game that I can play, that I could like, that I could, maybe slow down with. Because Yu-Gi-Oh! For me was becoming, very hard to keep up. Mm-hmm. And I stepped away for a while. I had a friend that used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With me who introduced me to the game. I played it for a little bit, and then I thought it was cool. He told me to download the app because Bandai has an app for the phone where you can play like a demo version of the game without actually having to buy any of the cards. And I played that, and I was like, man, this game's cool. Like the mechanics, the leaders like thing, you don't ever have to like fix energy, stuff like that. Just every little thing. I've played Vanguard, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Force of Will for a while, Hearthstone, any card game that I've liked, and I feel like the creators really took a look at everything and what everyone liked, and then they listened, and then they made this game for us to play, because as a player of every other game, it to me, it has the best of everything. It's literally got everything you would want in it. And Kyle's right. You can play anything you want, and you could be on par with some of the better like cards in the game. And there's always good and bad stuff in a card game, or what we like to call meta. But no, like every card in this game is pretty decent in its own way because everything's so unique.
I get a call. I'm not interested at all. I'm telling you right now, I have like PTSD, not to make light of PTSD, but I have that with Panini's game, the Z Sword and the fighters and the evolution of power and just how the whole game, it was a big mess, and it was a cash grab for the most part because there were so many different rarities and all these special cards you couldn't get unless you went to these super one-off events. I just wasn't a fan, and I was very apprehensive. But when I sat down and I played the demos with Chris and Kyle, it was transformational because I've played Magic for 18 years, and the thing that I'm always looking for is like what you said. I've got a checklist, and it's got to check my boxes off. Is this deep and strategic? Check. Can I play it with very little variance? Check. Does it allow me to do the fun and interactive things that I like to do? We call it cantrips. We call it tutoring, which is basically drawing cards and searching for cards. Check, check. Is there a tribal kind of thematic thing, elements in the game? Check. Is it based or skinned around one of the most endearing parts of my childhood? Check. So it checked all the boxes for me. And going from that point, it was something that I wanted to become completely invested in. And I think that over not even a year later, here we are. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the best parts about this game are the starter decks. I cannot believe that this early in the birth of a game, any trading card game, they would release starter decks with leaders and cards that are relevant in the meta.
Absolutely.
And that do not lose any of their relevancy as new sets are coming out. Like Starter Coup, the leader for the very first starter deck from Series 1, is still a deck that's played in the top layers of the meta. Am I right? I mean, is there anything from the starter decks that you wouldn't agree is relevant or you would say doesn't actually push any kind of power?
Well, you gotta sell the deck, and you can't sell your card game by putting every single good card
For sure.
in what we would call a structured deck. I think the first starter deck or structure deck, whatever we call them, it
We
had
call
a
them
lot
structure, but-
less value
Yeah.
than the two new ones, but I think that what this game does correct with their starter decks is, if this card is like at least semi-decent or revolves around your strategy or you got to play 4 of them, most of the time they give you 4 or at least 2, which means that you only have to buy 2 of them if you want to just cram it all together and make it a really good playable deck. And the game is just so easy and so fun to learn and to pick up and to play that we've had people come in with just the starter deck. And they've played it, and they get a couple wins at a local, and they feel good. And what that tells people, especially new people, is, hey, I can probably play this game for a lot cheaper than I could play a lot of other games because at a certain point, yeah, you might have to invest in better cards or whatever to make your deck better. But another big selling point for me to the game was the price. The cards don't usually get that out of hand, and you go from card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic where there's some cards that you're blowing hundreds of dollars on just to play 2 or 3 in your deck, and you don't have to do that in this game. And I feel like that's what the structure deck or the starter deck is doing correctly, is they're giving you at least some of what you need, and they're giving you the right numbers.
What do you think, Kyle?
Absolutely. So, starter decks, first off, they all have exclusive starter deck cards.
Yes.
There are 5 cards, I believe, in each of the starter decks.
Yes.
With multiple copies. I think 2 copies of each.
I think so, yeah.
And, no, these cards are playable in every single deck. Like, going back to Starter Coup, we had Princess Speed Vegeta. He was just drop him, draw 2 cards. Really good card. In the red one, we have, this Pan, that when you play her in combo with her, you draw a card. She's a 1-drop. She's one of, our only red 1-drops in the game. And then with black, we have the Trunks that literally pulls something from your warp, puts it into play. Starter decks have always been relevant, and they're really good. Now, these 2 latest ones, they're giving us 4 super combos, 4 counters. There is value in these. You can literally buy this deck, and you can play at a local, and you're going to do a lot better than, if you went to Pokemon and bought a starter deck and played at a local. So, no, there's definitely a lot of value in these. And now Bandai has their promotion where when you buy 2 of them, you're also given a dash pack. It gives you even further incentive to purchase these starter decks.
Absolutely.
And I love that aspect of this game. I love the promos. I love when you come out to an event, we have a store promo for you. These encourage players to come out. When you play on, like, for our weekends when we open up a kit, like, we have these additional tournament pack promos. And it makes people come out every single week. We've seen, 15 to 20 people every day for the last month. Like, this game's been growing crazily.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty big, but they're only going to get bigger when the summertime hits. So we're going to have to really figure that one out. That'll be something that Justin and I sit down and talk about. So let's start with Series 1, Galactic Battle.
Yep.
Galactic Battle is filled with a lot of fast aggro, I think. I think that the hallmark of that set was fast aggro. It was really Champa. It was really Vegeta. What do you think about the meta when all we had was set 1? And how do you think it evolved from set 1 to set 2 before we get into set 3?
Well, in set 2, we saw cards like Kale, and we had the draft box come in. We had Cell. In the draft box, we've got 4 exclusive leaders that you couldn't just pull in the regular set.
So we had the Vegeta Prince, the Majin style Prince,
yes,
right?
Majin Vegeta.
We had Son Goku,
Correct.
which people slept on. They slept on Son
Double
Goku
strike
hard.
Son Goku, yeah.
We had Mecha Frieza, and then we also had Gotenks, right?
Gotenks, yeah. So Gotenks was like kind of I'm going to attack your hand and not you.
Kind of like a mini Brawly.
Right. It's some like very key aspect of the game is just keeping cards in your hand, and that brings me to Cell. Cell in set 2. We also saw a new ability which was Union Absorb, and it was just pretty much instead of like Patora where you had to have both guys on the board and you had to pay a cheaper cost to play one guy by using those 2 guys, this Union Absorb effect just basically said if you had the card in hand that I specify, you can put it under me and it'll go and get whatever the next evolution is out of your deck.
So now we're getting into the Cell Chain.
Correct. And so Cell Chain was a good way to offset your opponent's tempo. We saw a lot of control decks that wanted to put as many cards in their hand as possible, like Ginyu, and that was the way to beat Vegeta, was put as many cards in your hand as they were putting in yours, so when you got critical, it didn't matter. And basically with the Cell Chain, when you get to the final stage of it, and it's very cheap to do, you end up with a guy that comes down, he's really big body, hits for 2, and he says your opponent has to discard every card in their hand until they get down to 3. Yeah. And they get to pick the cards, so there is a chance for them to play out of it. But Cell Chain was very dominant. I don't think it was like the most represented deck at the time, but it still to this day is in the meta. It's a very strong pick. And that was all set 2. And Kale is still being played too. Kale is one of like the better, most expensive cards in the set. And
well, I mean, you got Kale as a board wipe. Sometimes you have to reset the board state. You've got Jiren, and Jiren was in Union Force as well.
Jiren was pretty good too. But what sold Kale was that it was a critical attacker for 4. And it had a 20 body, which for 4, 20 is really good. Yeah. And if you're ever behind, it draws you a card. Like it gave you like one more incentive to play it after the other, and that was all Union Force set 2. And Mecha Frieza that came from the draft box was actually a big contender in set 3 because he manipulates extra cards, which are kind of like our spells in this game.
Yeah.
And most of them are very low cost. And what Mecha Frieza did was reduce the cost of those. And if it was to be reduced below its normal cost, you just played it for free. But the only expense was you taking your life. And in this game, taking life isn't always bad. It can be, because you don't have any life, you lose.
Building hand advantage is a good thing in that game.
But in this game, we get this added effect that we call Awakening, which is where our leader is double-sided. The front side is generally like a lower power than the backside. And so when you get to 4 life or X amount of life, you get to flip that leader over, and then it becomes like a better leader, a better attacker. It has a better effect. And
some will let you regen power, which allows you to tap them from inactive or tapped to untap, which is active. And others will let you draw cards, which again, building hand advantage is always good.
Or some would do something relatively close to what they did on the front, but a little better.
Yeah.
So taking life wasn't that big of a deal sometimes, and Mecha Frieza ran the format for a while up in set 3.
So it looks like set 1, we're aggro. Everything's on the board. It's attack in as fast as possible. Crit as much as you can. And set 2 kind of slows the game down. We have more interaction. We're doing more control aspects with not only the cell chain, but with cell leader, controlling the early board state. Golden Frieza had a really good moment to shine during set 2 because of the fact that, you know, if you're running yellow and red, you can do a lot of tricky things with controlling the board with Jirens, Cold Bloodlust, and a lot of other things. And then we move into the end of set 2, beginning of set 3, once we start getting some spoilers, and we see people start looking at those draft leaders more. And the game really turns on its head. So we get this huge division. Crossworlds releases, and immediately we see this ape combination with Mecha Frieza. And for, I would say, about a month, maybe a month and a half almost, everyone's up in a riot. Kyle, tell me a little bit about that and how that evolved. And then how did we fix it?
All right, so first off, Mecha Frieza just went crazy. So first off, we went about it a minute ago. So Mecha Frieza, when you play an extra card, you take a life, and then you get to play your extra card for free, as long as it costs 1. So like, in this game, when you look at your life and you go down, when you hit the halfway point, you flip your leader over, you're stronger, you don't take the hits, and you draw 2 cards. So not only do you gain the 4 cards from your life, you gain the 2 cards from drawing, and you're stronger, and your opponent can't attack you. And in the earlier stages, if they're not doing that, they cannot contest you on your awakened side. So Mecha Frieza was just going crazy. He was having these explosive turn 1s. And we saw 3 different variants, like, just go crazy on this. So the first one, we had this red variant. It's called GT, it's Grand Tour. So it's this 2-cost extra card. And it basically reads, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, take a Pan GT, Trunks GT, or Goku GT, put it into play. You can play this and take a life because of your leader ability, and you tap 1 red to do it. So it's super explosive. You get these Gokus out, and these Gokus, they start taking life like crazy. This deck on turn 2 would finish consistently.
Yep.
You would win the game on turn 2. That is not a joke. That is not like when you make a combo in a deck and you're like, this is like super happy, like I got every card I wanted, I went on turn 2. No, this was 60% of the time, maybe 70% of the time, you were winning on turn 2. And
High
if you
levels of
didn't hit
consistency.
it, yeah, you lost.
Absolutely.
And it was ridiculous. People had to gear their deck to this one leader.
Yep.
So then we saw androids get brought in, and that's the second one you're going to talk about, right?
So I did. So
Mecha Frieza. So we go to the Mecha.
This is still Mecha.
No, I know. I'm saying the Mecha androids, the veggies, right? And that the veggies build.
Veggies is it's Saiyans.
Saiyans.
Oh, okay.
So the whole thing the other thing about Mecha Frieza that's crazy is when you awaken, you have 4 life. So we have these cards called super combos. Super combos in set 1 and set 2 were basically play this card as a combo. It gives your leader plus 10,000 power and you draw a card. That's all it was. That's all they were for the first 2 sets. In the third set, we introduced these new super combos that completely flipped the game. So we got Shugesh, who basically says if you're at 4 or less life, gain 10,000 power, and you may play 1 Saiyan from your hand that costs 3 or less. The reason that's crazy is you're cheating out these cards on turn 1. And with the new support of these extra cards, you can guarantee to have 2 to 3 Shugesh in your hand by turn 2. Like, easily. Happened all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the green variant, we saw Saiyans. So they released Kaba, who's basically, look at the top 10 cards of your deck. If you find a Caulifla or a Kale, put it in your hand. If you choose Caulifla, you can just put her into play for free. So she's this 20k body, pops a life, helps you awaken. You will never not awaken as Mecha Frieza. You will always find a way to do it. And so Caulifla also makes it so that you can't pop your own guys with your own effects. So when Kale comes into play, her one drawback is you have to pop a guy on your board to blow up 5 on their field. She also has her crit, and she also draws when you have 5 or less cards when she attacks.
Yeah.
So she already has so many. She has 3 positive abilities and 1 negative, and Caulifla took that 1 negative away. So not only is there all that, Kaba reduces Kale's cost by 1. All cauliflower and all cauliflower and all Kale, they go down by 1 for each Kaba in play. So she, as a 4 cost, she goes down to 3. So when you're talking about Shugesh playing cards at 3, now you can play Kale for free. You literally just Shugesh, play a Kale, now you're swinging with crit. Crit's really impressive when you're super far ahead because they don't get to gain advantage when they lose their life.
Which is the only thing that's going to get them back into the game.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And so it's just, this took over so hard. Like, you would see 10 card boards on turn 2, turn 3. No exaggeration.
It was very explosive.
The game became play mecha or play nothing.
Play nothing.
If you are a competitive player, you have to play mecha. And it's a
That's
big
impressive.
issue. It's a very big issue.
So the turnaround comes this released in March. We had this release in March, and then in February the turnaround comes and the makers of the game respond. Sorry, April. March goes February. So April comes around, and the developers of the game, they immediately address in April this issue. And how do they address it?
They just had to completely change. They had to change the card completely, in my opinion. So as this card was like, he was a very proactive card. You used your extra cards, took your life, and you accelerated very quickly. They turned him completely reactive, which fits the theme of yellow as a color, but in terms of what that leader was, they completely gutted what I feel Mecha Frieza was. So before it was play an extra card, take a life, reduce the cost by 1. That was the old one. The new one, you can only activate this on your opponent's turn, and on the front side you can only do it once per turn at all. So there's only 4 types of cards you can do on your opponent's turn. We've got counterplay, which literally is only crushable in Cold Bloodlust.
But that fits into the theme of what yellow does.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Counterattack to stop their attack. Typical normal thing. Counter, which we only have Battering Laser right now.
Yeah.
Which the thing is, the only counter they can play on their turn is going to be their own Battering Laser. So like, it's kind of redundant. Like, that doesn't exist really.
Right.
And then the last one is just Activate Battle, like Sensu Bean.
Yep.
So those are the only cards that you can play in Frieza now. But at the same time, every deck in this game wants to awaken. That is their goal. And with Mecha Frieza, as your life goes down, your effect becomes less and less relevant. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to rush to awaken, or do I want to have a leader ability? And that's what's holding him back right now. So the thing is, you play yellow because you want to play Cold Bloodlust so that you can answer them from answering your things. You can protect your board.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because you're not awakening, because you're not ramping, because you're not drawing your cards, you can't build that board that you want to protect.
So I definitely hear what you're saying about Mecha Frieza, but I would conjecture that there is a little bit of versatility with the way that his ability is working now. And would you agree that when you're a control player, your biggest fear is tapping out? You know, and Frieza's ability allows you to go a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder because of the fact that you can tap out. If you mix in a little bit of green, now you can do King Vegeta surprise attack. You know, you can also still do Crusher Ball, and you can still work in Cold Bloodlust, and you still present that threat of control even when you're tapped out. And I think that that's pretty important. And then, of course, when you do those kinds of things and you're still using things like Senzu Bean, that allows you to guarantee that you can still awaken. I mean, effectively, if your opponent wants to stop you from awakening, they're going to have to completely shut down their offense in order to do that. And I don't think that that's viable in this format. I don't think you can shut down your offense and let a character like Mecha Frieza just build up their energy and then build up a giant board while you're doing nothing because you're afraid that they'll use their ability and awaken faster. Does that make sense? So I think that in the long run, yes, it doesn't play like it used to, and that's for sure. But at the same time, I don't really think that it's lost a lot of viability. If people sleep on Mecha Frieza as a control leader, there's going to be some decks that will still surprise. I think that ability is still viable in this format, just because of the fact that it allows you to do some things that you couldn't normally do as a control player. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but effectively, that's definitely my takeaway from the change that they implemented.
One of Bandai's reasonings for doing this was because they said that the way that people played him, it wasn't the way that they wanted him to be played. They wanted him to be played, like you said, as a control leader. I think that the fix is correct, but I think that when it first happened, we talked about it a lot. We tried to say, like, okay, is there a way we can make this like a thing right now?
Yeah.
And one of the first things that you get when you put all the mecha cards together and you want to play it the way it should be played is, well, if your opponent doesn't do anything, then you're not doing anything. Because part of control is reacting to what they're doing, and part of the way your deck works is playing the cards that react for free. But you can't react if there's nothing to react to. So that's like its flaw. And I think that can be corrected later on when we have more cards that happen during your opponent's turn.
Sure.
We have a pretty good sized card pool now with 3 sets, structure decks. We have the expansions and stuff like that, but there's still not enough, in my opinion, to make this leader like tier 1 or at least tier 0 where it was before.
Well, we definitely don't want
we don't want any more of that.
No more tier 0
But-
leaders, period. I don't want
But
any tier
I do
0.
see what you're saying with the versatility that it gives a control player,
Yeah.
with the whole tapping out thing. I just think that we don't have the right cards for it to be where it wants to be yet.
Well,
So there's other leaders that can do it better, I guess, is what I'm saying.
that's a perfect segue into just talking about a lot of the uncommon leaders and other rare leaders that we've had since set 1 that have come out within the sets that we haven't really gotten a lot of use out of. For example, we're seeing 17 and 18 used quite a bit. We're seeing some decks pop up that are using Metacooler and using just off the wall ones. I saw a Vados deck that was doing really well, and I also saw Majin Buu starting to make a run at it. But the unifying theme between all these decks that I've seen is black cards. You know, Kyle, tell me a little bit about black cards. Start from the introduction of the expansion sets, the Heroes and Villains set, and how did that change the variety of decks that we see approaching the fringe, if not tier 1.5, into tier 1?
Alright, so with the villain set, we saw Overwhelm come in. And now Overwhelm's this completely new mechanic. You can activate it once per turn. You take your discard pile and you move it to the Overwhelm, which is just removed from the game, and it allows you to play a card based on a certain number for free, essentially. I mean, you lose those cards from your discard pile, but you play the card for free. So with the villain set, we saw Time Patrol Trunks. It's a card, you drop it, look at the top 2, put 1 in your hand, put 1 to the top or the bottom. This card put a 15k body on board, let you cheat your hand, replace itself. Amazing card. We also saw the Mass Saiyan, which was another incredible card because it gave colors other than green and out to blow up your opponent's board. It was tap 1, banish 5, and you put it into play. It's a 20k double striker, and it just pops up to 5 on your opponent's board that doesn't have blocker. When that came out, we were like, no one plays blockers, not a big deal. Set 3 brought us blockers, and that's a big deal now.
For sure.
But it's still super cool that we have these cards that you essentially are dropping for free or up to 1, 2 energy cost at most, and they have completely changed this game.
I just want to point out that when Union Force came out and Yajirobe was there, Revenge Blocker, I said don't sleep on blockers. That's going to become a thing. And sure enough, in set 3, blockers have really come into their own. There's a lot of great ape blockers that do really, really well. There's so much synergy, and that gives me a perfect segue into the development of this game. So before we get to the development of this game, real quick, back on the Mecha Frieza, this change came within a month. The change to Bobbity and some other cards came within a few months of them basically being reported as problems. How much faith do you have in the development team after how quickly they have assessed and addressed issues within the game and that have been brought up by the community?
So to cover on Bobbity, that took like weeks. Like, that wasn't months. That was something the community found an issue when Chain Attack came, and within, I want to say 2 weeks, they were on it and they got rid of it. At first, I didn't play the cards. I wait until the set comes out. I don't test all the beginning. I want to play the current meta, and I want to be the best at that.
Yeah.
So I didn't worry too much about it, but I saw the outrage. I saw so many people freaking out about it, and I was like, "Come on, guys, let's wait until we play it." But no, Bandai went and they said, this is an issue. We did not see this happening. And they immediately said, the minute the set comes out, Bobbity will be errated, he'll be slower. And that's really good for a game. Like, the fact that they can see, they can make mistakes. Like, anybody can make a mistake. And the fact that they're willing to change it immediately. To say, hey, within 2 weeks, this will be better. This will be fixed. Like, we messed up, that's fine. That's really good for games. Like, even online card games won't do that. They will wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months before they even change a problematic card that's just hindering their game. And I love that idea that a card can be changed. Nothing is set. I really like that they're willing to go out there and say, hey, we're going to make this game better for you guys.
Okay.
Even with the whole mecha thing, we saw a little bit of action within the first week of the release. They did release like an article on their website that said, hey, we might have messed up, so we're going to keep an eye on this. And they were taking statistics from like all of our big tournaments, whether it was a local or there was, a shop tournament, or ARG did a tournament, or any company or whatever, and they slowly built up, the knowledge of how strong this card was, this variant was. And like he said, within a month we saw the fix. I was a little skeptical at first because it was beginning to be very hard to come into a local and have fun with this shenanigans running around. But at the end of the day, April 3rd, we saw the fix, I believe. And I think it's implemented a month from now, but most stores had already banned that card from their local to begin with. So to see change like that fast, absolutely amazing. Something that not a lot of card games do, like he said, and that's another just check mark on the selling point for the game to me. Like, if there is ever a problem and it needs to be addressed, they address it, and that's amazing company.
I really want to go on that. I don't feel like just because something is the best that it needs to be fixed.
For sure.
This was
Absolutely.
not a normal issue. This wasn't just like a tier 1 deck, like oh, I hate that this is tier 1, I don't want to see this.
No,
right.
This was problematic. This
Right.
hindered the game.
So just for a little context, for people who may not be familiar with trading card games, and you're kind of listening to us talking about tier 1 or tier 0 or things like that. Tier 1 is these are the decks in the meta that are doing really, really well. They're winning big tournaments. They're having big showings in top 8s. They're doing really well. But tier 0 decks are their own special kind of breed. A tier 0 deck is really talking about the win rate consistency. It may not be winning every single tournament, but if you're looking at the makeup of a tournament in the top 8 or in the top 16, we're talking about a lot of decks that are playing the same exact thing. And that's when you kind of call a deck tier 0. When it gets to such a level that it is so consistent that people are choosing to play that above anything else, that anytime you think about constructing a deck, you have to immediately think about XYZ particular cards because they are just that good, then that's when you get into this tier 0 conversation. And that's where Mecha Frieza was.
Absolutely.
That's not good for any game. Any game that has a tier 0 situation needs to immediately address it and ban or restrict. And I think, and I'm hoping this is true, by the end of the year we'll actually get our first banned and restricted list. And I hope that the game remains formatless. I don't want the game to do formats, and that may not be a popular opinion among other people within the community, but I can tell you like this. One of the best things, and this is what I was going to go in earlier, but I wanted to kind of go back and address the whole, having confidence in this company, which I have more confidence in it now than I did before, and it's actually making me think about carrying singles a lot sooner, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But in a game where the themes are very important, and I feel like this is a game where the themes are very important. You don't want one particular theme to dominate the creativity of the community. You want people to show up with Chilled. You want people. You do. You want people to show
absolutely.
up. You want people to show up with the Gohan that says "Pay 6"
Kill
and
everything.
wipe your opponent's board, because you want to see those things succeed. And I think that's probably one of the aspects about this game that has really captured the imagination of everyone who's a fan of the show, that they can play in sagas. And I had the opportunity to sit down with this guy, and super young guy, and he basically said, we are building within sagas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I've seen. You know, that's all I've seen. Building within GT, building within Majin Buu, building within Cell, within these particular sagas. And the thing that I love most about it is we know for a fact that there are characters they haven't even explored.
Correct.
Characters they haven't touched on. We haven't seen the Saiyan saga with Raditz and Nappa. We haven't seen certain aspects of the Cell saga with the other Z fighters like Chiaotzu. We haven't seen the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. There's so much we haven't seen. And one of the biggest things that we haven't seen, the Dragon Ball cards.
And Xenoverse, there's still... Xenoverse was, if you're not familiar with it, there's 2 video games that they did for Dragon Ball, and it allowed you to create your own character and go through like timelines and sagas with like different characters in like an alternate form and stuff like that. And there is Xenoverse cards in this game, and there's so many more Xenoverse characters that they haven't touched, or versions of our characters that we play now in Xenoverse that were different. So there's just infinite amount of things that they could do with this game. 10 years from now, there could be so many different things that we didn't see, or even different versions of things that we have now.
And that's important. I think
very important.
I think that that's the thing that is going to kind of instill years and years and years of loyalty to this game, because of the fact that there's so much content to touch upon, and there's so many different aspects of every single piece of content to touch upon, that we can see this game go 15, 20 years.
It's gonna go crazy. I mean, even if you think of it like in set 1, we've got Frieza Saga. So we don't even go through the whole Frieza Saga. Like,
Nope.
Let's not even say that. We've got Frieza at the very end of his fight.
Yep.
We've got the Ginyu Force in their bit. We have like a Dodoria card and a Zarbon card. We don't have leaders for them yet.
Nope.
Frieza, we've got his like base form in the pod, and we have his final form and his full power form. We didn't see form 2. We didn't see form 3.
We didn't
All
see
completely out
Nail.
there.
We didn't see the Chieftain. Kami. There's so many people.
So many people.
So much.
I mean, Piccolo came in and he fought at Frieza.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the other thing is like the traits, like the fact that Frieza's army exists and there's a leader on it means we can always just revisit. Just because we have a Ginyu Force set doesn't mean that's it for the Ginyu Force.
Right.
We can revisit the Ginyu Force because they add tags and everything. We've got 20, 30 Son Goku cards. We can go back to any arc again and just revisit them, bring them more into line with what the power is now. As we said, set 1 was really this aggro kind of thing. Maybe we start seeing some control things from, sagas we had in set 1.
Yeah. And I think that the leader base is going to allow people to eventually play thematic decks completely synergized around a particular character. I mean, eventually we're going to get to Piccolo leader. We're going to get to a Nail leader. We're going to get to a Goten, Gohan, Trunks. We could even get to the point where we see a Pilaf leader. I mean, like, all these different characters can eventually come to the forefront and do some really interesting things. I'm super excited about the set 2 draft set. And we just, we're getting that April 20th. Yep. And
4 more
Hercule is a leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can put Hercule as a leader, anyone can be a leader.
Yes.
Anyone in the series.
In fact, Hercule's card is literally like his dream of where he would be in this form, or in the show. He's a Saiyan. He's Super Saiyan on the back.
Yeah. And
we all know Hercule's not a Saiyan, so that little like small tidbit there is just enough for me to go, there's so many more possibilities later on. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. Any card game that can do that is amazing. One thing I will say about the game is, if your favorite character is not in it, or if you're too like, I don't know, these decks are good and these decks aren't, and this is the deck I want to play, how do I keep up? Give it time. I feel like looking at Magic the Gathering and its card pool, or any other game with their card pool, this game, even though it's played in colors and it's played in like themes, that just means that later on, cards that were bad in set 1 can be good in set 10.
Yeah.
Or a leader that is awful in set 2 is just better in set 5. Like, there's so many more possibilities. And with, it doesn't look like we're getting block formats. And I think that's great. I'm not a big fan of block formats.
Yeah.
So if we do get this list, that just means that anytime something pops up and it hasn't been addressed, they can instantly address it. And even with what they've done with Mecha and everything else, they get that like, when they take that action right then and there,
Yeah.
that just tells me that this game is going to be stronger, because maybe they don't have time to do all the research and they just want to print a card. And now they have the answer to that with a ban list or with a errata or whatever. And it just means that anything that slips through the cracks is not an issue.
Yeah.
And in card games, sometimes things slip through the cracks. You know, you're building thousands and thousands and thousands of cards, and you got to make almost every single one of them different. No one wants to play a deck with 20 of the same card in a game where you can only play 4 of each card.
For sure.
You know, so it just more and more selling points for me with this game.
Well, I think that we're moving into some of the most exciting elements of the game as far as the power acceleration in the game is concerned, and it's very heavy thematics. May's coming around the corner. We're going to get the Tournament of Power.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen some of the spoilers. Universe 6, Universe 7, some of the other universes, I'm sure, the Trio de Dangers, the Love universe. We're going to see a lot of things. And just from the few spoilers that we've seen a lot of heavy, this works with specific Universe 6 and
Yep.
Universe 7. Now, a lot of people in the community are like, well, are you going to go back and redo and things
Touch
like
on
that?
the cards.
But they're failing to understand that it's built within a very self-contained theme. Yes, you can play with these cards in any type of deck that you want to play with, but if you want the most out of the card, you've got to build within the theme. On the context of that type of development, how much more excited about special sets like that are you going forward in the game?
So for me personally, my favorite aspect of this game is the leader. And I love when any card interacts specifically with your leader, because as you build your deck, I feel like, so themes I'm not crazy about. They're not my thing. They're cool. Don't get me wrong. Like all this Universe 6 stuff, they all work together, but to me that limits creativity. I want to go throughout all the sets and I want to make the coolest deck. I love the cards that are like, hey, you can only use this ability, or like if you have a Universe 6 leader. That's the stuff I like, because it means this card can only work with this deck, but my other like 42 cards with just those 4 and 4, they can be creative. With this thematic thing where it's like you have to run this 20 card package in your deck, that's a little bit less of what I like. It's still very cool, but I love the leader things. Because like I said too, we saw the Zamath in the Goku Black.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, hey, if you don't have this leader, this card is arguably worse. Like it's just almost unplayable.
Right.
And that's a really cool way to balance the game. A lot of card games you can't do that. You know, you've got your color restriction, but in here, I could have a blue card be Zamath, I can have a blue card be Goku, but the Zamath is only good in the Zamath deck.
You know, speaking of Zamath, they kind of flipped the game on its head, introducing those thematic elements of immortality, where your life didn't matter, and now it was your whole deck is your life, and
Indestructible tag.
yeah, and little pieces like that, little touches, for me, have really impressed me. I mean, have you seen things like that have just really impressed you about the game, as far as little nuanced kind of special abilities, or just weird kind of card interactions that are just like, yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. We had, in set 1, we had not very many things. It was like double strike, triple strike, critical.
Whis.
And yes. And
That was a
Whis.
really cool interaction, right? Between Whis and Beerus?
Right.
Extra turn.
Extra turn. Or,
good luck getting that 12 man on board.
or tap 16, win the game. No, but then you introduce set 2 and you start to get like Union Absorb, Patora, Indestructible, and then we go to set 3 and now we've got Xeno Evolve, EX Evolve,
which I'm a big fan of. EX Evolve is very cool.
Overrealm, all that stuff, and that just tells me that set 4, 5, 6, the those little sets that like come in between, like this Tournament of Power set. This is not like in line with everything. This is a side set that they're doing, but that might mean that there is like tags and elements of these cards that sure might only work with their own, but it means that they can go crazy with it and release. We saw Quadruple Strike on our first secret rare. I want to say, is that what it's called?
Oh, you're talking about the SS4?
Yes. So
is that Quad Strike?
Does he?
No,
I don't
he's
think
a single
it is.
striker that pops one if he's at 60,000. He'll automatically take a life.
Is that SS4?
No, I'm talking about
no,
the
the Super
first,
Saiyan 4.
the first secret. The first secret.
No.
The
The
triple
first
strike,
no, triple strike, triple
attack.
attack.
But he was triple
Yes,
attack. That
triple
was the
attack.
difference.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
but that just means that we can see all these like different keywords, or I guess what they're called, skills in this
core
game.
skills.
Yeah.
Right, and we have active main, active battle, counter attack, counter, stuff like that. Kyle said earlier we only have one counter. Well, where's the new counter? Let's see what
We'll
we
get
can
there.
get.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So we have so many more things that can happen in this game that we just haven't seen yet, and that's just part of the reason why I'm loving it so far. It's new, it's exciting, it's got characters that you've loved and adored for years. If you're a Frieza fan, if you're a Ginyu fan, or a Goku or a Vegito, anything like that, you get, even if it's one card, that taste, that like, oh, I want to build a deck around this card, and then being able to do that, amazing about this game.
So Kyle, you spoke earlier about how much you liked building around a leader, but how much have you liked the fact that they have kind of bled some of the particulars of a particular color into other colors? We have counters that are red and green and blue. We have a little bit of energy ramp in some of the other colors besides blue. We've got a lot of different interactions that were color specific, but that are kind of bleeding in other colors. Is that good for the game? Do you think that
Absolutely
increases that creativity?
So yellow had the issue of it lacked so many things. It had all the counterplay cards, like it was super cool, but like it lacked Boo, which was just play it, draw a card for one.
Yeah.
You have Bulma now.
Yeah.
You can do that. We didn't even have a negate in yellow. Yellow did not have a negate attack. With Nimbus, not only do we get a negate attack, we've got arguably one of the coolest negate attacks. I think one of the strongest cards in the set.
Yeah.
Literally, it says your opponent doesn't take their turn, and it's crazy. It's an exaggeration, but that is a crazy card.
And that's really good. It's the first counter.
What was I talking about?
So back on the train of thought, we get a lot of different cards that were color specific, and now they're kind of bleeding into other colors. Yellow, like you said, didn't have a counter spell, but now it's got arguably one of the best counters in the game with Flying Nimbus. You can shut that down. Card draw, we had it with Boo in blue.
Yep.
Now we've got it with Bulma.
Yellow.
Curious Son Goku, a little more expensive,
Green.
but we see it in green.
Yep.
And we go into a lot of different colors, and we start seeing some of the effects that were color specific in previous sets that are starting to get in. So basically the question is that helping the game? Does it create more does it build more creativity? Is it something that we don't want to see? I mean, like, do we want to see colors kind
Diversity
of
is
keep their identities?
Really good in this game, and I love it. And I feel like with changes to like counterplay, like with the new changes, I feel like we're going to see counterplays in other colors as well. I would love to see everyone be able to react to everything. Not everyone have exactly every answer, but I would like to see everyone have some sort of interaction that's just unique to them, and it's just spread across. Like yellow right now, there's only 2 counterplays in this entire game. And I think that's a really cool mechanic. The fact that your opponent plays a card and you get to react to it, it doesn't necessarily need to be like, destroy their card, but there's a lot of other ways. I mean, we have the counterplay cards, they come into play.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily negate the attack. We got that with Topo, but we've also had the Vegito, which is pop a 4 guy. We had the King Cole, which takes the attack. The Goku, which was a negate for blue. We had to drop 2 Saiyans to do it. I mean, and I love all the thematics and all the little like tags that everything needs. If you want to do this, you gotta do it in the Saiyan deck. If you want to do this, you gotta do it in the Frieza clan deck. If you want to do this, Frieza army. They're 2 different things, and it's amazing.
I really like that, and it's something that has kind of propelled my interest into where this game's going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I think that is important as we go forward and we start to invest monetarily heavily into the game, that we get a return on that. Like, I haven't wanted to, as a shop manager, invest in singles. or even look at singles for this game until I felt confident that, you know, Bandai was going to make sure that this game was going to be around for a long time. But now we've gotten to the point where that confidence level for me has skyrocketed, and I feel over the moon in terms of getting singles and start collecting singles. So let's talk a little bit about deck construction. And let's address a few things for new players. So new players, this part of the video is going to be really for you, so pay attention. Right now, we're 50 cards, and we got a 15 card sideboard. The bigger tournaments are all going to be sideboard. So we're hosting a Tournament of Power April 28th at 1 p.m., and it's going to be an all-day event. We're 60-minute rounds. We're best 2 out of 3 with sideboards, $30 entry. But the amount of prize support that you're going to get for this tournament is amazing. You're going to get 3 tournament packs upon entering. You're going to get pack per win all the way throughout the entire tournament. You're going to get promos. There's going to be giveaways. We're going to really prize out the top 8. It's going to be 4 rounds, top 16 cut, 8, 4, all the way to the finals. And we are going to do, for 8th and 7th, you're going to get 2 and 2 additional on top of the 3 that you got for entering. For 6th and 5th, it's going to be 4 and 4. For 4th and 3rd, it's going to be 6 and 6. And for 1st and 2nd, it's going to be 8 and 8. And then the first place winner is taking an entire case of special packs. And that is something that is really worth getting into and really coming out to the tournament. 1, be a part of the community. 2, walk away with some really good prize support. And 3, just test yourself, because that's ultimately what tournaments do. They allow you to test your abilities and kind of see where that evolution goes. So let's talk about deck construction. Let's really get into the nuts and bolts of it. You've got 50 cards. You don't really have to worry about energy in this game because every card in your deck is energy. But is there a science, at least in your opinion, to putting certain cards in certain combinations? Is there a curve, like, you know, so many 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s? And is there ever a point where you put in a card and you consider it to be energy instead of actually playing the card in the deck? You know, what are these things? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So definitely, there are cards. I don't want to say every card in your deck's going to do something. No, you're not going to play a card and say this is energy.
For sure.
You can play a card as a tech and say, in the worst case scenario, this card is energy.
Yes.
So like, you'll never play a dead card as energy. Now we couldn't. In the future, we could get cards that have effects as energy, and that'd be really cool. But we don't have that right now, you know? Like a little upside down thing, tap this, it could be a blue or a yellow. I mean, that'd be cool. We don't have it yet.
That'd be nice.
But,
if you're listening, Bandai, I like that idea.
Absolutely.
so then, talking about like staples to a deck, first thing you have to do is look at your leader. It's never that simple. Like, I can't just say, like, you have to play this card in every single deck.
So you get your leader, you look at your leader on the front side, it's got an ability. So now thematically or synergistically, what you're trying to do is construct around that particular ability just to maximize its effect. Is that, would that be accurate to say?
Yes.
All right, so once you've got that down, now you're looking at the 50 cards that are going to go into the deck, and then as far as the curve of the game is concerned, what you're doing first turn, second turn, third turn, what are you looking to put in from that point?
So throughout the different sets, it's changed. You know, in set one, you'd want to hit, I'd say 35, anywhere from 30 to 35 cards for your main color, and then with a 15 to 18 splash. That was pretty consistent. Moving into set two, remained pretty close to that. You know, you saw some 30-20 splits, some 25-25 splits. You generally played two colors. We saw some three colors in both sets with Ginyu, but I mean, that's, you know, and again, that's to your leader and that's to what you do. Yellow splashed in a little bit of yellow pack, so you can play Cold Bloodlust. That's a huge deal. Set three, everything got mixed up with black cards. It's crazy. You got leaders that want black cards, you got leaders that don't want black cards, then you got leaders that want half your deck to be black cards.
Or ones that just can't play them at all.
Yeah.
For sure.
With what we saw with the new draft leader, she doesn't qualify. She doesn't do anything for black, but she does it for red. Is that right?
It's all
Or it's
non-black.
Every non-black.
All
Yeah.
non-black.
So you're just like, you can, but you're more encouraged to play without them.
For sure.
But then black cards are so strong that you're still
Yeah,
gonna have
just
black
like,
cards in combo.
maybe I should play a different leader, or maybe I should.
You're still gonna play on
them
there because they're free. You're like, I'm gonna play Trunks, and I'm gonna look at the top 2 and take a card, and it's gonna help me get my combo pieces. And sure, he might not get buffed, but he's still 15k. He still contests their leader. He's a big deal.
So this is where we come to the whole value aspect of deck construction. When you're putting a card in, what kind of value are you getting? And it seems that black adds a lot of value because of the fact that you can play it for free and you're getting some really good effects on the board. I know for a fact Time Patrol Trunks is a card that makes some leaders relevant because there are some leaders who need combo pieces, Metacooler being one of them. You know, Metacooler has Big Get Star, and you're putting Metacoolers out on the board, and you can run as many in the deck as you want, but there's a few combo pieces in the deck that you need to get to. Time Patrol Trunks allows you to dig to, start looking for those combo pieces a little bit faster, and put a body on the board that can push in and put a little pressure on your opponent while you're going through, or help clear that board so that way you can average out. And then once you get those combo pieces and give all your guys double strike, evolve for 3, whatever the case may be, that just helps that leader get there a little more. Now, will it be tier 1? Obviously, it needs a little bit more support. It's still on the fringe, but it wasn't even in a conversation before black cards.
Right.
And I feel like black cards really do that.
And I mean, like, so take it to a relevant thing with like apes. Apes are these cards where you need Planet Vegeta and you need March of the Great Apes. These are not optional cards in this deck. The planet untaps your apes at the end of the turn, and March lets you play 2 apes for free and draw 2 cards. It's crazy, but they're extra cards. There is no way to search an extra card in this game. There is not a single way in the game right now to search it. So Time Patrol Trunks, looking at the top 2, that could be your combo piece, and he's free. You can do it on turn 4, play it, get your March, and suddenly you just went from like I'm gonna have a dead turn to this is gonna be explosive.
Yeah. Okay, so we get this split. So if we're gonna go a full color, obviously that's very easy. If we're gonna do 2 colors, we want to be in the 25 to 25.
2022.
2022.
Because we have to fit in black cards now.
Okay.
So let's go 2022. You know, that varies. Sometimes I only see 15. Sometimes I'll go to 25, just like I used to.
Now, we've already addressed the extra cards, and we know that we have the battle cards.
Yep.
So we've got these 2 competing card types in the deck. Extra cards are helping us get a little bit of benefit, or they're drawing cards, which we call cantrips, or they're searching for cards, which we call tutors. So cantrips, tutors, where's the ratio at between that and bodies on the field?
To me, it's like if your strategy depends on extra cards, maybe you play more, but most of the time the only thing that is going to play a lot of extra cards is control. Back in set 2 we had Ginyu, and he was like the best control option at the time, and I think most of the tricolor lists were topping out with like 19 extra cards, and that's a lot. Like that is a lot, but he was a leader that pretty much encouraged you to play on your opponent's turn and not on your turn. So having cards that weren't just bodies, but were counterplays, counterattacks, active battles, stuff like that. That would be, if your strategy is around that, maybe that's why you play more. But because at the end of the day, if you're control, maybe your idea is the late game, and in the late game you get to drop big guys, not little guys that pressure their leader, big guys that are going to close the game out. Like your goal is just to get to 7 energy so you can play this guy that ends the game. That's your thing. Or you play something like Pan. Maybe you play a lot more. I think Pan only plays like 1 counter, you know, or like an extra card that looks for battle cards that you're playing. If your strategy is aggro, maybe you play a lot of little guys. Maybe you play a lot of early curve, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you play less of the 5 drops to 6 drops, stuff like that. It's just, I think it all depends on your strategy. It depends on your leader, your strategy, your color, and what you like. At the end of the day, I don't want to play a deck that I'm not comfortable with if I'm not having fun with it. And DBS TCG says you can have fun no matter what your style is.
So let's talk about it this way, and we'll break it down into 3 groups, all right? We'll talk about it in the terms of aggro. So with aggro decks, you want to put a lot of little guys on the field, and value is very important. You look at a card like Saiyan Kappa. It's a 1 drop, it's 5k, but it allows you to awaken faster by taking a card from your light, putting it in your hand, which will allow you to push harder. It gives itself plus 10,000, gives itself double strike, lots of pressure in the early game. We'll look at it in terms of the second type, mid-range, where you're putting little guys on the board, but those little guys are going to help you either to accelerate into bigger guys or themselves fuse, Batara, whatever the case may be, evolve into bigger guys that are just going to be more value on their own. And then we'll look at it in terms in the third type for control. Control meaning that you want to control the board state, control your opponent's hand, be more reactive and less active. You're looking at the long game. So, in terms of aggro, putting a lot of fast little guys. What are our ratios? Because these guys are new. They're going to want to build decks. What are we looking at creature-wise in the curve? What do we want our balance to be as far as between battle and extra? And what kind of extra cards do we want to make sure that we have in the deck?
So first off, for aggro, I want to start with red. I think red is the primary aggro color, so I'm going to start us off right there.
Yeah.
Next, I'm gonna shoot the pan leader. I'm gonna say the pan leader from set 3. She's new. She's aggressive. She does a lot of things for that color. So that's how I'm gonna start my deck.
Sure.
So I put the pan leader up. Now we gotta get 50 cards. So Pan's big thing is whenever you play a card, she buffs it for 5k. If it goes to 20,000 or more, you draw a card.
Okay.
So something crazy about her is that it works on both turns. So it works on your opponent's turn. So we have 8 cards. That goes crazy with this. We have Vegeta, I think double shot Vegeta.
That's right.
He is a 1-cost combo card, and if you combo him on your opponent's side, or during your opponent's turn, you can put him into play on your turn.
Yeah.
And he comes into play at the end of the battle, goes to 20,000, you draw a card. Crazy card, really good. Next, with set 3, we got Topo. Now Topo reads, if either leader is 15,000 power or more, that's really important, either side. For 2 red, you can play this card to counter the attack. He's 20,000 power, goes to 25k, you draw a card.
Yep.
That's super cool. He also has an ability, when he attacks a card, if he destroys it in battle, he untaps so he can go again. So typically, they're going to attack with a battle card. You're going to block it, you're going to draw a card. Next turn, you're going to attack into him, kill it, and untap. You get another attack.
Lots of value.
Crazy. There's so much value in this. That's going to be your first 8 cards right off the bat. These are just reactive 1-cost, 2-cost cards. Another thing why Topo is important, that 15k doesn't have to be awakened. So we see Massane be a really popular deck right now. He pops 3 off the top. If he gets a colored card, he goes to 15k. Even on turn 2, and can float 2 energy, play the Topo, draw a card. It's crazy. So then, as you said, we got to go early game with this. So we're going to start off Force Kaba. As you said, crazy card. Take a life. When you go into battle, 15k, double strike. That's not a turn 1 card. That's not a turn 1 play for me. That's a turn 3, 4, 5. The idea of when you want to play this card is when your opponent's at 5 life, and you want to swing at them to make them go down to 3 with a double strike.
So it's easy to get tempted and be greedy and try to push really strong in the first, second turn with this card, but you're saying you're advising caution.
I'm saying,
turn 3, turn 4.
like in every other game, when it's aggro, you're going at their face, you're just beating them down, and it's done. Like, it's easy, you win. In this game, no. In this game, when you hit them, you are putting cards in their hand. When you put 4 cards in their hand, 4 of their life, they're going to awaken, draw 2 more cards, and they're stronger, so it's harder to go aggro on them. So in this game, you have to be very cautious of what you do. So when you get them to 5 life, right before they awaken, when you swing at them, if you swing a double strike, they'll be a weaker leader, and if they go down to 3, that's much better for you. It's easier to take out 3 life than 4 life.
Just one less life.
Yeah, it's one whole less life.
Before they awaken.
And then there are triple striker cards. I mean, we might not play them. We might. Champa exists. Champa isn't evolved for 5 red, or 5 cost. He's a triple striker, and he pops everything on your opponent's board. It's a crazy card, and people sleep on it. That card's going to be crazy. I still think it's really underrated card. But, so we got the 12 cards. We got the 4 Kaba, 4 Vegeta, 4 Topo. Base of the deck. We got 4 of these pans that came in the starter deck. I think she's a pretty cool card. We'll put her in there for now. She is tapper for 1, 5k. When you combo with her, draw a card. She's really good.
So you get a combo from the battle area.
Yeah.
And she pumps something for 5,
And
so she gets value immediately when she hits the board.
Yep.
Let's just continue down the package. Because we're making it simple. New player. 4 Trunks. What is he called?
Chain attack?
No, you're talking about
the tree drop one.
Yeah, you're talking about the one, not the reliable Trunks. It's the Trunks that has critical.
Quick Rush, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Quick Rush.
Yeah,
I believe it's Quick Rush. Yeah.
Critical.
Also in the starter deck.
Critical. 15k. So when you play it, Goes to 20, you draw a card. 20k crit, it's crazy.
Yep.
It's hard to stop. It's a very good card. As we said, chain attack. Let's go into it because we got it.
Balls for 2 red.
Cost red.
Yep.
Place it on top. This card can attack active battle cards. Super unique. Only Jiren and Chain Attack Trunks can do this in red right now.
Yep.
It's crazy ability. So he also reads, when you play this card, you may play a 15k or less monster from your hand, just drop it.
Yeah.
So that's going to get me into my next card, Fearless Pan.
Which is a monster.
Is a
She is the word. She's the stuff of nightmares.
Absolutely.
You've got a giant board state already. You've already put down 3-4 guys. And then Pan comes in and says, oh, hey, by the way, I'd like to give them...
So all red cards get 5,000 power and double strike.
And this goes for your leader too.
And your leader.
So it's just like more and more encouraged to
Your
play
leader.
a theme or like a red. So like, why would I play other cards when only my red ones are going to get buffed by
And to
Pan?
put things in context, we had a promo card, Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, that was red. That came in and gave everyone 5k. So we're talking about a card that can be cheated onto the field that not only does exactly what he did, but also gives double strike.
Just a little bit better.
It's disgusting.
Grandpa's
but
not
it's
as good.
disgusting in a way that's very fun and enjoyable.
Hey, we're not done. He's got blocker and barrier as well.
Yeah.
Just to sit on the side there. If all that wasn't enough to make her an amazing card, she's also blocker barrier. She just, after you pass your turn, you got a defensive wall there. That's crazy.
Barrier was another tag or keyword that we didn't even see until set 3, and it flipped the game upside down. To have a card that can't be targeted by your opponent's skills is very relevant right now, because what used to run the game before with a lot of the control decks was every time I play this card, it's going to take something away from you, but in order to do that, it has to target, it has to choose. And putting up a guy, especially a guy that has barrier and blocker at the same time, means you cannot answer this card without making me answer it for you. And that's like a control player's worst nightmare. I hate it, absolutely hate it.
So the aspects of this deck so far look about half creatures. I mean, like, we're already at the half point, and we still have a few more guys to throw in there, don't we?
I can't think of any extra
Because
cards.
we have
I want to
the
play
super
in there.
combos are all guys. I mean, they're all
battle
bodies.
cards.
They're
So, I mean,
bodies.
you might, and I mean, this is subjective, you know, everyone builds their decks differently. You might play our new counter card, which says if you have a red Saiyan leader card, you can play this card, counter the attack, and then your leader gains 5,000 power until the end of the turn.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, because that means every attack that comes your way, you have an extra 5,000 defense for the whole turn.
You're playing Senzu Bean without blue now.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that card is very good, and I do think Pandex will play it. The only reason they might not is because, as I said, we got the 4 Vegeta and we got the 4 Toppo. We already have 4 negates and the 4 10 keys to go over that draw us cards. Like, those are crazy. So not only is this card crazy, but those cards are so crazy that they're better than this negate. So it's like, there's so much power in this deck. And every card I've said so far is cheap. Panda's the most expensive. She's rocking like 15 a piece right now.
Now.
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
She was not 15.
you play
5 days
Magic.
ago.
You play Magic. What? You're gonna get $50, $100 staples. Yu-Gi-Oh, $100 staples. You need 3 copies of them. This is Pan. This is the only card in this deck I think that's worth money. You need 4 of them. It'll cost you $60. Like, it's not that crazy.
That's a really good price point entry as far as, you know, really beefing
And
up your deck.
that's
to
like
be
a high
competitive.
level deck. That is a
Yeah.
competitive deck. That isn't just
For-
like,
especially, yeah.
I'm
for-
going, you know, I need to just play this game. I need this card. You don't need this card. You can play the game without this card.
And still get pretty good wins.
Absolutely, you will win games without this card. But with this card, it only takes you even higher, and that's all you need. Like, I mean, I don't have to spell the whole deck out, but I mean, you just throw in red cards from there. You know, Bodyguard Legic's really cool. You play him for free, 15k, gets buffed by Pan, draw a card. He's got a blocker.
So the overall theme here is, and what it looks like so far, is it seems about 75-25 as far as percentages go from battle cards to extra cards. And you want your mix to be low, powerful, cost efficient, lots of good return on value. So you're looking for low costed cards that can get on the field very soon, very quick, and either respond to or react to your opponent. And you're looking for, I would say, effectively a 4th or 5th turn kill where you can really control the state of the board and really push through on your opponent. So that's pretty much aggro. Mid-range decks. We see a lot of different mid-range decks. Right now, personally, I play Vegito, and I feel like Vegito's very mid-range. He's looking for turn 5, turn 6 at the earliest. as far as when he's looking for the kill, and he requires a lot of build up in order to make himself really effective. But he can be super effective. Beerus is a really good mid range deck because of the fact that they're looking not so much in the control aspect of things, but they're looking to quickly mana accelerate into general destruction, or even further with a God of Gods. No, I've seen them. I've seen them accelerate into 7 energy with a few pieces on board, and then God of Gods right into a 12. Go for Whis. And that's a really good mid-range goal. So with that kind of a build, let's say Beerus is our leader. Let's say we're looking for the God of Gods, where we cheat guys that are on the field that are already tapping for energy or can possibly become energy back into the energy. How are we building that deck? What are we looking at as far as the splits go there? What's your first thing that's going into the deck?
The first thing that has to go in this deck is we need cards that we can play that help us get to where we want.
Okay.
So I've got 12 cards right now, all 1-drops. We're talking 4 Majin Buu.
Yep.
Play it, draw a card. Simple. Gets you through that quicker. 2, Bulma. Bulma, you play her, searches out a Whis. Whis, when you play him for 4, take the top card of your deck, add it to your energy. Gets you to what you want to do to play your big guys. And the last one's going to be Gawasu, which is look at the top 3 cards of your deck, pick a god and add it to your hand. As we build this deck, everything's going to be gods besides Bulma.
Or Boo.
So right then and there, we're looking at 4 of the Buu, we're looking at 4 of the Bulma, we're looking at 4 of the Zawasu, we're looking at 4 of the Whis. We got 16 right there. West Kai, which I'm sure you're going to include objection. It's like a new objection for set 3. She's in the battle area. She can tap for energy there.
And she has barrier.
And she has barrier, which makes her very hard to deal with.
You're not going to answer her.
Yeah, so you've got 20 creatures right there, and it kind of seems like the overall theme is as you're going into building these decks, a lot of what you're doing as far as bodies are concerned, pretty much it looks like a 75-25 split all the way through.
Right.
I'm seeing it from there. We're going to go into control, and I'm sure maybe in control it kind of bleeds more towards like a 60-40 or even like a 50-50.
Even in this mid-range, like we're going to get 4 Whis' Coercion, 4 Objection, 3 or 4 Sensu Beam. Like there's definitely more extra cards in this deck than in our last deck. Because that right there's 12 cards, and I mean, there might be more.
And if your goal is to progress, or if it's to take a guy on board and make him better and better and better, you have to keep that guy on board. In order to do that, you're going to need counters. You're going to need guys that block for you, or that take cards away from your opponent. Anything that gets you through your opponent's turn just to push you further into like your mid-range strategy is going to go in mid-range. Like you can't evolve a guy if he's not there, and some cards do not do anything unless they are evolved.
So on that note, one of the best cards I think to come out for that type of deck, for that mid-range deck where you're trying to get to a point where you can energy ramp up, I would say is the new Strategist Piccolo. I mean, that's a great card.
He's pretty cool.
So you got barrier, critical for no reason whatsoever. Just because. And then I've got an ability that I can activate once while I'm on the field. And
whenever you want, not during your opponent's turn, but you don't have to slap that card down and play it immediately that turn. You can wait until later on when they play something that I need to get rid of.
So now you can pop a guy. And I think that really helps that deck get there.
Sure.
But again, this comes down to a situation where we're not all the way there with that deck, so the deck's not tier 1, but effectively it's so close. We have so many decks on the fringe, but effectively between your aggro build and your mid-range build, you're like 75-25, and that's pretty much where the split's going to go, it looks like. So we go into the control aspect of the game, and we start looking at some of the better control leaders. For example, we look at 17 and 18. I think 17 and 18 are a control build that really people sleep on it. They sleep on it. They really do. The same thing with Brawly. Brawly is a really good control leader because it manages your opponent's hand. Hand destruction is super powerful in a lot of other TCGs. Let's say we build the Brawly deck. What's going in the Brawly deck? And then let's see where those ratios fall out as far as extra cards and battle cards.
I don't like Broly.
You don't like Broly? Come on!
I've looked at Broly for a long time.
Yeah.
He's very hard to play. The only reason why he's very hard to play is because he has a silly little permanent that says, I'm a leader, but I cannot attack battle cards. And so you're forced to which his other effect is it only works when he attacks. And so if you want to make your opponent discard a card, or you want to make your opponent sacrifice a guy, you have to do that by, in turn, almost giving them a card by attacking their leader. Because when you take a life in this game, it goes to your hand. Broly's not a critical attacker, so he's not going to take that card away for free.
And we don't have anything
he's going to punish you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think Broly is in a weird spot, but if we're just a new player that's trying to build a Broly deck, right off the bat, you have to put in for Broly's ring.
Yep.
Yes. So Broly does have an ability that it takes cards from your opponent, but he takes cards from yourself too. With Broly's ring on the field, it is a 1-drop green energy, and you can play it. You most likely would want to play it turn 1, because what it says is it's not a body or anything, but it's a field card that negates the effects that Broly would deal to your hand.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
So you get to swing at your opponent's leader and make them discard a card where you're not having to discard one.
So immediately the first thing that's going in is 4 extra
right
cards.
there. And I like Kyle said earlier, the leader is a very key component in your deck. We wouldn't play Broly's ring if we were playing any other leader.
Yeah.
So then you go into like, what else fits this let's take cards away from them theme?
Yeah.
The Broly package does that. Broly has a 1-drop that looks at the top 7, and
so you fish out
gets a
Broly. Yep.
But you have to be able to protect that Broly in order to evolve him later on.
Yeah.
And you have 2 other options of Brolys, and now 3 because of our Tournament 3 promos. So to me, if you're building Broly, you're probably going to put 4 of the ring, 4 of your little Broly, 4 of the new one, 4 of the second evolution, and maybe 2 or 3 of the last evolution. And that's already, like 20, 30 cards right there?
Yeah, because you
12,
got
16,
you got your
20.
bio Brawly, you got your 3-drop promo Brawly,
Mm-hmm.
you got your 4 there, and then of course you're going to be running of the Relentless Assault, I believe,
Right.
the Triple Striker,
And-
who also does some hand destruction, which is crazy.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
because
there's
Triple Strike wasn't good enough.
there's your super combo. You want to be able to play a super combo for the late game, so you put
16.
in 4. You can't play 16.
You got to play
Broly,
16. How do you not?
because he only works for a green android leader.
Oh no!
Right, yeah. So you're stuck with
No!
the Trunks Protector of Children, but at least you get that 10k draw a card in the late game. So that's another thing you're gonna.
That's
put
why
in.
we're playing Sail with the Brawler package. I'm going to control your board, and I'm going to kill your hand.
Yeah, and then there's if you're spending money in this game, there's always which if you're playing green, you're probably spending money, because right now green is in a weird spot. But there's the
kills are
veggie or salad engine that
Yeah.
we play now, and that's just 4 of the green kaba, 4 of the kale, and 4 of the cauliflower. And an amazing thing about cauliflower in the Broly deck is Broly has take a card from your opponent's hand on the front, but on the back he takes a card from your opponent's hand, and he
pops
makes
the
them
guy.
sacrifice a guy on their field.
You too.
But it makes us do that too.
Yeah.
And so Khalifa comes in and she says, well, I don't have to sacrifice anything because I can't. That's just what I do. So all of a sudden in the late game, you're going to swing with a 15k attacker being your leader. You're going to draw a card because of its first effect. You're going to make your opponent discard a card. You're going to make your opponent sacrifice a card off of board, and you're not going to be touched by it at all. So in an ideal board, you're looking at 4, 4, and 4, and that's another 4, 8, 12 cards that's going to go into your deck right there. Another card I think is really good in this set right now is I don't know its full name, but it's a Mira, and it is an Overwhelm Mira from set 3. If you have at least 3 in your drop, you can warp your drop. He comes down, he's a 15 body, 5k combo, and he just makes your opponent discard 1 card. And they get to pick that card, but that is 1 less card you had to deal with.
Yep.
Even if it was a dead card, it just gives you more information about what your opponent's doing. And that card comes down for free. You start comboing that card with your leader that's taking 1 that turn, and your Broly evolution that's taking 2 that turn. And then
And I
now
think you're
all
going
of a
to
sudden,
run the Goat Sense as well, right? Full power Goat Sense, 3-drop,
sure.
hit in the hand.
Yeah, he can, every time he attacks the leader, he discards a card. So suddenly, if your deck starts to go into order, your early game is weird, but your late game, because you're a control player, is I'm taking 5 to 6 cards from you at one turn. And at least maybe you're only taking 2, but that's still a lot in this game. This game, it is very relevant to have a lot of cards in your hand, because when you look past the counters in this game, you still have a chance to fight back with your combo pieces, and your combo pieces are very important, and the only way that your combos are going to help is if they're in your hand.
And that's a great segue into the aspects of deck construction that a lot of people fail to recognize, and this is just my opinion, but I think that when you're starting to break down those bodies or those battle cards, and it still feels like we're in a 75 to 25% split.
Sure.
But when you start breaking those pieces down, how important is it to pay attention to your 5Ks, which are 0, and your 10Ks, which cost 1? Now, there are some 5Ks that cost 1, but effectively most 5Ks are 0 cost. So how important is it, and what are we looking at ratio-wise there as far as what you want to have in your hand in the mid to late game in order to either A, survive, or B, push through for the victory?
So with new set 3, like almost everything's a 5K.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how many cards. Like in set 1, you go back, you see a 4-cost card, it was a 10K. Now 4 costs are commonly 5Ks. So in the newer stuff, everyone has 5. You attack into a pan and she's got 10 cards in hand, you expect at least 50,000 in her hand. You expect every one of those to be a 5K. The issue with the Broly package, all those old stuff's 10K, and it really hurts him. It really does. If you ever tap out his Broly, it's a huge hindrance. Just going into it, definitely like, so you've got the 5-drop and the 6-drop.
Yeah.
That's 8 cards just there, and I mean, that's not all you're gonna run in a deck typically, like.
But it feels like when you're taking into account the ratio between 5Ks and 10Ks, your 10Ks are 9 times out of 10, I would say, are your finishers.
Yeah, they're like the better cards, the later game cards.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about the triple strike Brawly. He's basically a finisher, right?
Double strike.
Was he triple strike?
No, I wish he was.
There's another 6-drop that's a triple strike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the one that hits for the hand.
He's the
double strike.
He's the not played one. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, to me, you want to have enough cards to defend yourself in your hand if you don't have a counter, but you don't. But at the same time, you want to have enough power. But those 10Ks, they cost 1 energy to play, and even if you're comboing with them, they cost 1 energy. So you start digging into like, oh man, is there too many 10Ks in my hand? Because a lot of my big plays revolve around me tapping out my energy, and if I cannot defend with no counter because I'm tapped out, I can't defend with any 10Ks either because I'm tapped out. So
I just want to point out that Mecha Frieza's never tapped out. Good.
But you got to start looking at like, are these cards valuable enough for me to play in order for me to put my 10K count at like 12 or 15? The Ape deck, did that. And the Ape deck lost if it didn't have March because you had to tap out a lot of your turns to progress your game, and in order to like
build your board state.
Yeah, in order to build your board state, and you're stuck with all these like big guys that are really good, but only good if they're on board, and they're all 10K because of that. Kyle mentions everything 5K in Crossworlds. That is very relevant. To me, a card that is 5K and does the same thing that a card that is 10K, the 5K is probably going to be put in my deck more, because that means that in any instance where that card is not useful, if I'm playing against a rogue deck that I don't need to kill things in, or I'm playing against something that it just doesn't value me as well, I can throw that card away as a 5K. It's never dead to me. You don't want to just wait for a card. Like if your card is dead, you don't want to have to wait for a turn just to play it as energy. Because your strategy shouldn't revolve around that. Your strategy should revolve around getting as much value out of every single card in your hand during each turn as possible. I think any card game, you look at that. That's why the best decks are the best, is because they cheat stuff into play. They take cards from your opponent. They are a big body for a little cost, stuff like that. That's why we play the cards we play, and that's why Control shines, is because you get an insane amount of value.
So, to recap, we're about 75-25 split as far as battle cards and as far as extra cards are concerned in your 50-card deck. And on top of all of that, when you're looking at your 5Ks and your 10Ks, you definitely want to make sure that your finishers, which may be 10Ks, are limited to about the 8 to
8
12
or 10,
range.
12. Yeah, that's a
Somewhere,
good number.
somewhere in that range. Okay.
I've played 12 and had trouble.
And this is not about exact science. You know, I mean,
No,
like I'm going to tell you right now,
absolutely.
deck construction is as much art as it is science, and it will come down to feel, and it'll come down to tweaking. So when you get to the point where you can start playtesting a deck after you've actually compiled the cards together, you're going to see some very glaring flaws in whatever it is that you're building. And if you don't see these flaws, come down to Game Master, and we will help you
Yeah,
find the flaws
absolutely.
in your deck construction. Because even guys that are having really great records, or even girls that are playing the game that are having really great records, I guarantee you there's always some little tweak that can take your deck to the next level.
I try to do that every time I play somebody. If I win, maybe I won because you made a mistake, but at sometimes maybe I won because you're not playing a card that you should be playing, or you're kind of going in the wrong direction with your deck because your leader does something completely different than what your deck does. That's another thing about the game that's really great for me is the community is pretty good right now.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't ran into like very many toxic players, hardly any actually, and I'm happy with that. Any game where I can come in and play, and if I lose, I still had fun playing, or I still had like a good conversation with my opponent, or they shake my hand and they say, "Why are you playing that?" or let's see how we can make it better. Like, to me, that's gonna make me come back. Not the cards, not the art, not the price support or me winning. I'm gonna come back because I had a good time today.
Sure.
And there's no reason for me to come out and not have a good time.
Yeah, it's time investment. I mean,
Exactly.
you want to get the most return on your investment.
And this game's very good at that right now.
The game is
I'm
very
good at that.
I agree with that
Love the
100%.
social aspect.
Okay, so before we wrap up the video, number one leader that you think everybody's sleeping on.
Oh man, you gotta give me a minute to think.
Number one leader that you feel
everyone's sleeping
could
on.
get there to tier 1. Either A, because it has almost all the support it needs, or B, you feel like Turn of the
It
Power
has to
might
be
give that
sleeper.
support.
It's not something.
Is
that
it
people
Not
are
something
buying.
that people are playing
so
wildly.
something that we
I got
don't
This is just
know.
you part
I got this.
in your little
I got
secret,
this.
in your little
Absolutely.
secret heart diary.
I'll throw it out there. I'll give the secret strats to everybody right now.
Okay.
And I think Mira is the leader right
Mira
now.
I was gonna
Really?
say Mira.
Is
I'm really
so
disappointed
crazy right now. So number one, he's an android.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This dude can play the cell chain, which is crazy.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. You're gonna see some yellow leaders pop up. Yellow's not where it was without Mecha. It really isn't.
Okay,
And
well,
so
I still
Cell
feel
is
like
going
it.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
so he gets to play cell chain. Next, he draws a card every turn when he attacks, which is cool. Like, people want that. So when he flips over, so we've talked about the two different ways of Awaken. Untap 2 energy or draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
He's completely different. This guy says, flip over, look in your Overrealm stack, take 1 card, add it to your hand. That's crazy because it's anything. Any card. It could be, oh, maybe I tossed a 3-drop Cell and I put it in my hand. Now I've got the Cell combo active. Maybe I used a super combo. I've got an extra super combo. What's the next thing? He's a black leader. He gets to play the black super combo, which just says if you have 5 cards in your Overrealm stack,
Yep.
you can play this card. You can play it on your Unawakened side. No other leader has that right now. It's crazy. So I can use it, defend, flip my guy over, I have another super combo. I get 5 super combos. I'm already ahead of my opponent in that sense. What else do we got?
His front side, doesn't he draw a card when he attacks?
Yeah,
He attacks like he can draw a card as long as you have
He's clearing the
green or
field.
red in
Yep.
your draw.
He's drawing
Next
cards.
thing, he mills. He mills 2 cards off the top. That fills you for Overrealm. We're talking how important black cards are right now. They're crazy.
Some decks don't
They're
play a
so
lot of Overrealm
good,
because
but
they
you-
can't do that.
Yeah, but because this guy can, you're probably looking 15 to 25 Overrealm cards. That's not an exaggeration. It's so good. So Trunks. I think this is the card everybody's sleeping on. I think finally you're seeing its price go. It was at $5. Now you're seeing it at 10. I
Okay.
think this is the Kale of the set. He's a 4-drop for 2 tap, 4 Overrealm. You play this card. He's a 20k double striker, and he says, "Look at your Overrealm stack. Take 1 battle card and add it to your hand." Going back to our whole super combo, grab your super combo. And
Yeah.
the thing is, what you use to pay is what you search. So basically, if it's in your discard pile or your Overrealm stack, you're gonna be able to choose from it. I could attack with my leader, draw a card because that's what your leader does when you awaken. Use a super combo, draw another card, let that attack go through. Play this Trunks, have a double striker, get that super combo right back, And attack with the trunks, now I've got a 30k trunks that drew me another card. Like, there's so much crazy potential with this overrealm mechanic, and Mirror just lets it go crazy while also having the cell package in the back.
Okay.
It sucks because I was going to say Mirror 2.
You were going to say Mirror 2?
I was going to say Mirror 2. And I think
we
one of
together.
Yeah, so like the biggest selling point for Mirror for me was not only am I playing the cell package, not only am I playing the good trunks card, am I playing the super combo, I'm playing Create Android, which is a very cool card that only Androids can play. I'm playing Overrealm effectively. I'm a critical attacker in the late game. Mm-hmm. I'm swinging, I'm drawing a card, and I'm saying this card is going to take a card from you no matter what. And that just adds more and more to my take cards away from my opponent's strategy, which Cell does amazingly. Androids do amazingly. And Mira is I think he's an excellent contender that no one is sleeping on. Or that a lot of people are sleeping on. But if I had to pick one that wasn't Mira...
Yeah.
If I had to pick one that wasn't Mira, I would say that it could be Cooler. And that's...
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I want to talk about
regular cooler.
If I'm
Are we talking about Metacooler?
No. If I'm forced to pick a card here, a leader that everyone's sleeping on, I would say Cooler. And the only reason I say Cooler is Shugesh is amazing. It's an amazing super combo. But Shugesh only works if you have a yellow leader. And Shugesh needing the yellow leader is very important because some of the yellow leaders are better to play than others. Genyu, for the same reason we played Mecha Frieza. Mm-hmm. Maybe we want to play Cold Bloodlust. And Cooler can't do that, but he can play Shugesh. Mm-hmm. So you start mixing in cards that cheat cards out for free, and then you look at more cards that give you more value. Well, on Cooler's front and backside, he sends the top 3 cards of your deck to the drop, which is what Mass Saiyan does, or kind of what like the Mira does, which allows you to play that extra splash of black that you really want for your Overrealm. But he doesn't get anything for it like all of your other leaders, but all of your other leaders can't play Shugesh. Mm-hmm. So you get to play cards that are going to be cheated into play for free on top of the cards that you're already playing for free, and you still got enough value in your grave to keep going. I think that he's not amazing, but with some work, I think he could be pretty good.
Just give my secrets away. I've been playing some Cooler at the locals. I'm not sleeping on it. Everyone else is sleeping on it.
And I've talked to you about Mira a lot, so calm down.
Okay. Maybe not popular opinion. I'm going to throw it out there because I feel like tokens... Shut up! I feel like tokens are getting to a point where they're going to get some value.
Oh, sure.
So the leader that I feel like everybody's sleeping on, and I feel like this leader could potentially be very big, is Chilled. And I don't care what you say. I think Chilled can really do it because here's the deal. A lot of attacking in and giving your opponent hand advantage is the ability, is the fact that leaders, when they flip, generally will go to 15k, but Chilled doesn't go to 15k. Mm-hmm. That means he can attack into a 15k leader, no issues whatsoever. And he can not do the damage, meaning not giving them the advantage. And he creates tokens. Tokens go wide. They create board presence. Mm-hmm. He has cards in his deck that allow him to make his tokens able to combo and to get double strike and to do some other things. On top of that, we're seeing the invention of cards like with the new Magetta that will allow cards to come in play and really buff up the board. Now, Magetta doesn't get tokens because of the fact that he has a specified cost. So he's only going to hit things that are 1 or less, and that sucks for tokens. But I feel like that kind of card existing means that eventually they're going to shift, as we've seen more cards like the Zamasu that came out that's creating more tokens. As we see more token generators come out, we're going to see some cards that are going to specifically hit tokens, or we may see an errata 2 tokens that finally make them 0 cost. So if we see either of those 2 things, tokens can become a really big deal. I mean, you going yellow, splashing red, running the Gotenks that created.
If I had $1 for every time I lost to Ghost Attack Gotenks, I'd probably have about $100.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because
that's really good.
It creates 3 Ghost tokens. If you have 4 or less cards, now all those Ghost tokens are 15k double strikers. That is oppressive. And I'm telling you right now, and I'm calling it, I'm throwing it out there, either Chilled is the leader that takes us there with tokens when we finally get some support, or inevitably we get another Gotenks that creates Ghost.
Or another token leader that's just a little bit better than...
I don't know. I love Chilled.
Frieza and a Unitard.
He's so tiny. I love him. He's teeny, he's tiny.
We need barrier on them. We need barrier on tokens
barrier on
somehow. If you get barrier on tokens, I feel like they can start going crazy.
No, look.
But now that we have barrier, it's a possibility. It's there. And we've got a new card coming out that's like, give all red Saiyans barrier. We could see that for tokens. If I get one turn where my tokens are protected, you can't kill me, you can't Mass Saiyan me. That's the issue with tokens right now, is these two cards, they say, hey, up to 5, get rid of that on the court. But for tokens, they have 0, so it's just... they don't have 0, but they can just get rid of everything.
Well, only on the up to effects. So on the specified cost, they're completely protected. And no, they do. Kale exists, and so does UI. You know, so really UI Goku does it, and Kale does it, and it's like 2 things in the game right now. But everything else is specified cost. It's 5 or less or 4 or less or whatever. Mass Saiyan is specified cost, I believe.
No, he's
the same thing as Kale.
Yeah,
you just can't hit a blocker. Yeah, he's the same thing.
So you gotta give your tokens a blocker.
Right. You gotta give your tokens something. I mean, the token strategy is great. I've seen it in other games. If you only have to block, even if I give you all those cards in your life except for one, only one has to go through. And if you have 20 cards in hand and you only need to combo one of them for every attack, but I have 25 guys on board, you're probably not going to get through that turn. That's where the tokens shine. But Tribal does it too. So maybe you see like a Tribal token strategy later on.
That would be great.
I think it's like infinitely possible with this game. I want Ginyu Force to be really good, and the flaw with Ginyu Force is that they're not big enough, and I think the only thing that could fix that, or like one of the things that could fix that, is just a field card that says, hey, give all my guys 5,000 for a turn, or something like that, like, it's infinite possibilities because of the way they've designed the game already, and I think that Chilled, or Mira, or Cooler could be something later on that everyone's like, wow, I couldn't see this coming. Same thing with Mecha. Mecha might come back later. Beerus might come back later. Everything might just come back later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that being said, we're going to bring the show to a close. I mean, if we just continued, we could sit here for like 3 or 4 more hours, just literally going. Which means that we're going to have more episodes for you, and we're going to be doing more. Dragon Ball Super was kind of the genesis of why we wanted to do shows like this, and kind of basically bridge the gap between the store and those individuals who are interested in coming to the store or interested in learning different games. So look forward to deck techs, look forward to live streaming, look forward to more conversation about new sets, look forward to more conversation about the meta, and definitely look forward to more conversation about the community. We didn't really dive too much into issues that are going around with the community. I kind of want to do its own episode with very specific things about the community, but at the end of the day, there's 2 takeaways that I want everyone to have with the show. And number 1, the community is more important than the game. If tomorrow Bandai folded up the game, the community needs to transition to a new game together, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you like each other. If you like each other, if you have respect for one another, and you just kind of understand that at the end of the day, this is a game, and it doesn't really need to escalate past, hey, good game, bro, and then just go on with your life. And number 2, if there's anything that you want, you have to vocalize it. You can't just argue about it online. Comments below, talk to me in the shop, talk to community leaders, talk to people who are at the forefront. You see Caden here, you see Kyle, you're going to see Chris and Edwin and Mike, and you're going to see a bunch of other guys that are in the community, and you need to talk to them. You need to let them know, hey, I'm thinking about this, what do you think about that, and just real conversations. And that's the only way that we're going to move forward as a community and make the game grow and grow the community itself. So with that being said, I'm Andrew Lucio. Take care now. Bye-bye then.